To oh, one sec.
Okay, I think we're live. Hey everyone, I'm Maddie from the Solana Labs team, and welcome to our most recent session for the Ignition Hackathon. And today I have Alpha Ray, the founder of Radium Protocol, Xerox Maki from SushiSwap, and Ian from Saber. And today we're going to be discussing all things decentralized exchange. So first of all, thanks guys for joining. And maybe it'd be best to just give a quick intro, a little bit about each of your projects, and then we can kind of jump in from there. Alpha Ray, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I founded Radium, which is basically a hybrid AMM built on top of Solana. So what makes us a bit different from traditional AMMs is that we've incorporated Serum's central limit order book. So not only do we do an AMM or like a normal swap on our page, but we also are market makers on Serum and provide liquidity for the whole ecosystem. So basically anybody interacting with Radium is interacting with not just Radium, but Serum. And that when they provide liquidity here, we also put it out as limit orders on the order book, and users are able to either swap against our pools or swap against the order books, depending on which one gives them the better price. So on top of the AMM, we also have a launchpad for new projects, and we've recently introduced an NFT drop zone to help new projects get off the ground with their NFTs.
Thanks. Ian, do you want to go next?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm working on Saber, which is a exchange for stable swaps on Solana. So basically, if there's two assets that are supposed to have the same price or try to stay around the same price as each other, the Saber algorithm is basically optimized towards that. And Saber is largely based off of the math of Curve. So you can kind of think of it as Curve on Solana.
Nice. And then finally, Maki.
Hey, Xerox Maki. I'm the co-founder of SushiSwap and currently advising there. It is a community-run AMM, which is heavily inspired, aka a fork of Uniswap V2. We're also doing things with Miso, which is their own launchpad on Ethereum, and we also have pretty much our own isolated lending, which is called Kashi. We're currently deployed on over 10 chains, and that is pretty much it for us.
Nice. And you may notice that I'm the only one that has my video on. I think Ian is using his real identity with his project, but Xerox Maki and Alpha Ray are not. And so before we dig into the nitty gritty of decentralized exchange and your projects, I'd love to just start out with maybe a little bit of a conversation around why you guys decided to be anon when you started your project, and what the pros and cons are of choosing that route versus using your real identity. So I don't know who wants to start, but I think that's a really interesting topic.
Sure, so I'll start again. Basically, we have, we live in it's a tricky thing whether or not to be anon versus using your whole profile. Business development definitely gets a lot easier if you can go out to meet people or if you can have a name online, but life also gets a lot trickier when everybody knows who you are. Even within my close friend circle, only a few people know what I do. And I find that it's a little bit easier on life this way, that you don't have people bugging you all the time for random things. And that the point of this is not to be a celebrity, right? It's to really bring DeFi to the world. And just like Satoshi Nakamoto, it leaves a little bit, it makes the community feel a little bit more, it feels a little different when everybody doesn't do it for their fame and people don't really know your name. You could just be another member of the community when you're chatting with other people like that.
Yeah, I echo a lot with Ray. I think, it's mostly about being judged by our action or conviction or contribution rather than by who I am, by my background, my pedigree. It's all about like just contributing freely, and that doesn't require a name and shouldn't be. Doesn't require a status, doesn't require anything. Should just be about like who you are as a person. It's probably the purest form that you can have, being an anon. So that's kind of the optic here, and like the way some jurisdiction are not as friendly as some others, etc. I think ultimately an anon is just like giving himself way more trouble on the OPSEC level, on like the trust level for like other community members, etc. Like it's always kind of making things harder, and you need to have system in place to make sure these individuals are not like becoming bad actor or going rogue. So that to me is just like hardens the whole process and kind of decentralization. So it's pretty dope.
Makes sense. Ian, did you ever consider when building in crypto going anon? Okay, now you joined with the video. So,
yeah. I mean,
yeah, curious to get your thoughts.
I'll just do it. Yeah, I think that I mean, I've definitely considered it in the past, and I mean, I've been more I guess low key before I guess my first public project which was Uniswap. And yeah, I think it's really good, especially if you're like learning and you might like I guess make some mistakes, to just be anon, just be another community member that just contributes to things. But yeah, there's also like a benefit to using your real name too, in that I actually have like I can like go to events, like talk to people about Solana. But there's definitely a lot of value in being anon as well.
Yep. So yeah, maybe to discuss some more details about kind of the decisions you guys made. All of you guys have built kind of like components of an automated market maker into your project. And I'm curious, kind of like from a high level, why did you choose an AMM model versus an order book? And if you could do it again, would you make the same decision? So maybe, actually, Ian, maybe you can start and then we can work around the room.
Sure, yeah. So Saber is targeting stable pair. So like basically like the I guess disadvantage of using an AMM usually, especially like for like volatile assets, is impermanent loss, where the AMM might make some trades that are like not optimal for what you want to do. So like if you're just like a bag holder, like you're just going to lose money if you're in the AMM and you have to like subsidize it with other things. But if you have stable pairs, then the AMM is, or the pair is always supposed to converge back to the same like value. So first of all, it's not as interesting to trade from like a non-AMM perspective because it's like less volatile. So you're not going to be able to make as much money from market making. And second, like since you have the LP token, you could use that for other purposes. Like you could use it as collateral, and it's basically the same thing as like the underlying asset. So like for example, if you use like USDC, USDT LP, so like they're both worth $1, right? You're not gonna make much money on that if you're just like market making on KuCoin when it goes like above $1 or below $1. But if you have like this LP token, right, then you're making those fees from market making like you normally would do. But on top of that, you have like this dollar you can use in other places. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Cool. Yeah, for sure. Maki, and I think that makes a lot of sense given like you guys are doing extremely highly correlated pairs, whether it's like USDT for USDC or like some derivative of, or synthetic version of Bitcoin for another derivative or synthetic of Bitcoin. So it makes sense in that sense, for those pairs. But how about like going outside of like stable swaps, like where there's this kind of notion of impermanent loss. I'm curious, like Maki and Alpha Ray, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, for us, like for me personally, like what I really like about kind of the AMM design for kind of uncredited assets is that initially, kickstarting like the pool and the assets, like making assets liquid initially is extremely easy. You just, put up like two assets together. You decide of the weight, you decide of the price, and there you go. You have a market that is basically like running, and people can start to buy in, can start to add liquidity over and over, etc. Ultimately, when like a market is becoming, I guess, more mature, there's like a question to be asked whether or not like this makes sense. And I think it's highly relevant. And like many people are claiming that for price discovery, like order book at a certain point is way better. But there's also like a small detail on Ethereum or constraint that very like that is not, I would guess, something that people in Solana think for that was the gas price back then. Like AMM was basically like the most efficient way to kind of trade for people that were using like Ethereum wallet and etc. If you abstract this gas component, then things are quite different, and we can see it with like not like one of the most, I think, flagrant design example is DYDX. The moment they switched to layer 2, they saw their volume like skyrocket, and I think this is just a statement on how much friction there is with kind of these transaction costs. So AMM, like for like low cost of transaction and kind of bootstrapping liquidity and so on, is perfect. I do think that the whole advent of liquidity mining was also like very key in making kind of these LP pool and AMM way more popular than they were before. So there's this component that basically like money Legos were built on top, which can be replicated, I think, with regular order book style, but wouldn't be the same way. So yeah, just like the passive of AMM is, to me, like super easy to comprehend for many people, even though like there's some risk of impermanent loss.
Yep. And then Alpha Ray, as far as I understand, Radium is kind of almost a hybrid model of an AMM, plus you plug into Serum, which is an on-chain order book. Can you kind of explain kind of like what the design decision was there?
Yep. So first of all, AMM is elegant. The equation is straightforward. It's easy to understand. And it also provides liquidity for price, like any token that goes to any price. And it also fits in perfectly well with an order book in that it's two assets that you're trading against. So take Sol and Ray, for example. What the reason we went with it at the beginning was also because Solana was in its early days, and there was a need for something like this in the ecosystem. Basically, something that would all these new projects come in, and they needed liquidity, and there was the main exchange would be Serum, but there are very few market makers in the space for Serum, and that we decided to have the order book as a component because there were a lot of users on Serum as well, and there's a lot of projects that want to launch on it. So we are able to provide a service that other projects really do need, and that users can also enjoy by having better liquidity on top of the platform.
Got it. And yeah, I know one thing that both, I think, Sushi and Radium have kind of been known for is like going beyond just like providing an AMM for simple swaps. There's a lot of products that you guys kind of like offer on like the platforms. Can you kind of talk through from like a product development standpoint, how do you decide, for instance, for Radium, like to go into this kind of like IDO platform? Why did you go there first? And then I know for Maki, I know a lot of the product decisions were kind of expanding beyond just the simple, swap. So maybe just kind of go into how you guys think about building out these other features.
Maybe I can start on this one because I think it's a very compelling thing. I didn't personally envision anyway in any single way like the way we would have built product. It really came down to community. Like they just literally like some devs were interested in building with us. They show up, they just pitch us, they pitch the community on the forum. They just say, hey, I want to build this decentralized NFT marketplace, and literally applying with a grant, and we just fund it as a community. We say yes, this is a good idea, we want to support this, and it kind of goes on. Same for Kashi, like the isolated money market. It was like 100K sushi grant. Um, it's kind of it's it is messy, but at the same time, it kind of works. We put kind of a lot of I guess responsibility on them, on these contributor. There's a lot of trust, and usually these people are very passionate about kind of sushi, the community, the project, and they just go to the finish line. In some instance, it didn't happen because of like technical bottleneck and so on. But rule of thumbs is usually like any of the product that you see that is being built for sushi is just like someone that got their hand dirty and wanted to contribute. That's pretty much it. Like on the dev team, like the core team, there's been like massive improvement on the UI, the UX. And like right now we have like Trident, which is about to come live on Ethereum and is going to be deployed on multi-chain afterwards, which is kind of a 3-in-1 AMM. But like on the technical aspect, on the product, it's not just like a single kind of person taking decision. It's more like a group of people coming together, and that is the community-led aspect of sushi.
Got it. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's more just like the community kind of putting up things that they want to see built or have, the capacity to build themselves, and you guys just kind of using this DAO structure of adopting those technologies into the platform. As far as I understand, Alpha Ray, like Radium doesn't have quite the same kind of like DAO like structure that Sushi does. So how do you, as a core team for Radium, like kind of decide what features to add or not without this kind of like community input?
So we do have a pretty big community on Discord and Telegram. We haven't been able to fully implement the DAO features yet. Solana's ecosystem is much younger, right? And we basically identified the needs of our community and the ecosystem as they were coming up. So when we first started, there were very few projects on Solana, and there were no launch pads here. So to really grow the entire ecosystem and grow the community, we needed more projects to launch, and we needed a lot of basic infrastructure on Solana. So since we'd already launched there and we've gone through a lot of it, we looked at the needs that we had before when launching, and we built the accelerator. Basically, it really is an accelerator in that we talk to projects from very early on in their building, and we do advisory. We help them with tokenomics. We help them get connected with the right people and meet the rest of the community. We also do a lot of marketing with them, and that we help them get launched, and we also help them build liquidity so that their projects are tradable for users, and that they also have the funding to continue building out the ecosystem. So yeah, the Launchpad was really, or the accelerator was really built around that there was a need for this to continue growing the ecosystem, and the community really enjoyed doing launchpads as well. And the same with the NFT drop zone. So drop zone was built because we were trying to, a lot of us were, and our users were trying to get into these NFT drops on Solana. And these NFT drops, a lot of them wouldn't go very smoothly. There was the first come, first serve, and a billion people trying to get in at the same time. So a lot of them didn't have the necessary infrastructure to support a drop of this size. But since we'd already done this for a while and we had a lot of stuff ready for it, we decided to hop in this and just help out the ecosystem as a whole because, well, going through these pains ourselves, it's not pleasant and it's also not a great look. So we basically just look around and see where we can help out, how we can really grow the ecosystem so that we can all do well in it.
Cool. One interesting thing that you guys have mentioned a little bit is kind of the role of the token in your platforms, as well as sort of like an incentive or a yield farming, promotion. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on when from like a product standpoint, and just community standpoint, do you decide to introduce a token? I think all of you have all three projects that you guys represent kind of did it at different stages. So would love to kind of hear about your thought process on, when to introduce a token. Is it, do you want to make sure your product is like sticky enough from a UX perspective that you feel comfortable like adding on these incentives? Like, when do you make that decision? Maybe Ian, you can start.
Yeah, so I think that the token is what actually brings the users to the platform in the first place. And I mean, if you're building something that has a very well-known analog on a different chain that a lot of people are already using that has token incentives, then I feel like it makes a lot of sense to just add the token incentives in. If you're just like making some like more experimental project where you don't really know if people actually want it, then it might not make sense to add token incentives. But yeah, token incentives will just like inflate all of your growth metrics whenever you add them in. So like the thing, it could, even if the project might not be useful, like the project would be useful when the token incentives are launched. And like basically like I think it's good to launch the tokens if you want your project to grow. Sorry, yeah, that was a little convoluted, but yeah, they should. Yeah, I think tokens are good to launch earlier rather than later.
Yeah, and I think obviously SushiSwap, famous vampire attack on Uniswap is maybe an example of this. So Maki, would love to hear your thoughts on when to introduce a token into your project.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was not really out of boosting some metrics or else. I think it was more about like the frustration and the fact that, there was absolutely no way to help out or, contribute and be kind of received back then. I don't think this is now the case for Uniswap. I think they kind of awakened because of kind of everything that happened. They released this token, even though like the governance per se aspect is there's like degrees of success, and I'm personally like not gonna critique everyone as long as like this is on chain and everything. I think they've been going well, I guess, in this sense. But like the regarding like kind of distribution and everything, for us it's been kind of clear from day one that this token was kind of not for a team, not for or kind of our interest. Like the core team at Sushi own like 0.8% of the token, which is like almost nothing if you ask me. And is that a bad thing or a good thing? I think the fact that most of the distribution is handled by LPs, community members, and people that basically have skin in the game is extremely good, and they can be like kind of responsible of like dictating what they want from this protocol, whether they want like change on pretty much anything, to be honest, like whether this is team member, whether this is like more incentives, whether it's grant, etc. There's like really good value to adding a token, I think, to any kind of DAOs, communities and so on, just so create this like kind of coordination mechanism. And of course you can even attract like liquidity money, and at this point this really creates not a moat per se, but it create more stickiness or like value revenues. There's like this very slippery slope though, where if you incentivize too much and the inflation is not controlled, in a way that is sane, you will fall into a death loop. And that's what we've seen with we remember what's the name of it? Sorry, there was this curve fork on Ethereum that I can't remember. Swerve, there you go. So there was Swerve on Ethereum, and they kind of fell into this dead loop where incentives are so low that LPs just move away or go somewhere else, and then that's where you kind of witness kind of the death of some of these, I guess, over incentivized protocols, and sometimes can be very hurtful. For Sushi, right now we're working with Gauntlet Network to mitigate kind of these issues, and we're making sure that pairs that are incentivized are usually in the net positive for Sushi, or if not, like a very small margin. So that is kind of how we've been able to kind of sustain this this rhythm. There's also, like, of course, the aspect of doing like vesting to it, etc. Overall, like, a token just to boost kind of metrics can be very dangerous in my opinion if there's no actual value to it. We'll see what happens with for example, I don't know, that's the lastest I've seen, but DYDX, apparently there's absolutely no revenue shares or anything. All of the revenues goes to the Inc. So what does it says to kind of the communities and holders? I don't know, but so far it's been going pretty well. So it doesn't really matter. Sometimes it's all about kind of the narrative. We'll see in the end, like, kind of where this all goes. But yeah, incentives and token usually are pretty good if you want to attract LP. We'll see if in the long run, like, we can find ways to transform, I guess, mercenaries into long-term oriented people, um, holders, and so on. I think like what V Curve is doing is pretty interesting. There's a bunch of others, like Itzil from Pickle, Convex. Sushi is potentially going to launch, like, O Sushi, which should, in theory, goes in the same kind of vein. But everything takes times, and you cannot, like, just throw around like new tokenomics here and there and try to basically, like, change a system with multiple $billion in TVL. So that's kind of my optic, I guess, for everything related to token vampire attacks.
Yeah, cool. One other additional question I actually had for you specifically, Maki, was around, like, I feel like of between Radium, Saber, and Sushi Swap, I'd say Sushi's kind of been around the longest and has probably like the largest community, and you've completely kind of like decentralized it through this DAO structure. How do you envision maintaining that kind of continuity and usage of the token in governance decisions when Sushi is kind of like entering this multi-chain world where there's outposts of the Sushi protocol on in a variety of different chains outside of Ethereum? Like, how do you see that cross-chain governance working out long term?
I don't know if I can leak alpha or not, but basically, like, there is protocols working on doing cross-chain calls of smart contract. You can think of Connex. There's a bunch of others. We're in active talks with them where you could potentially, in theory, based on your holdings, your XUSI or else that is on another chain that is, or sitting in Ethereum, you could ping them from a layer that is, like, way cheaper from, say, Solana, or say Polygon, say Avalanche, etc. You could, in theory, be doing this type of actions. And right now Sushi as itself is not even fully decentralized, in my opinion, where like, we need to have, like, on-chain governance with payload of codes, etc., similar to Compound, Aave, and so on. So when this comes down to, I guess, like, the really nitty-gritty and so on, Osushi is just a step in this direction. And then like, there's going to be an even more powerful kind of migration for the entire system, in my opinion, at some point. We're seeing it with Bento too. It's probably going to get fully end over to the community. Right now there's still, like, a multi-sig on it. Overall, like, all these challenges is kind of what I think most people should be focused on, rather than um, for us, in this case, sometimes we just don't have any. We don't know where like the subjacent teams are kind of working on. So for example, Show You is gonna be launching like in a week or two, and they were initially going with Polygon, but maybe they're also gonna be using some other layers for the main thing and so on. So all of this is kind of really messy to organize, and we have like I think only like 1 p.m. right now. So that just give you an idea of managing all of this 25 remote decentralized team is pretty difficult. So yeah, that's all it comes down to, in my opinion. Like, decentralization is hard, and I don't know if personally, like when I look back at everything that we've done over the year, when Nomi asked me if the community is ready for governance, I was wondering if I was saying yes, of course, the first minute, but now I realize potentially like we should have held back a little bit more. So for cross-chain governance, it's just gonna come down to leveraging kind of cross-chain calls and etc. I think personally, but who knows? Maybe some other people's are gonna have some other ideas. Aave is moving in the same kind of direction, so that should, in theory, be a good indication that we're also on the right path.
Yep. Cool. And then one of my last questions for you guys is kind of around, you guys have all had a lot of success in terms of like, daily trading volume or value locked in your guys' protocols. And, I'm wondering from your perspective, like, what is it going to take to get kind of like decentralized exchange to kind of the next level, which is, starting to eat most centralized, crypto exchange markets and beyond. I know there have been days, I think DYDX surpassed the like Coinbase's volume, 24-hour volume recently. How is this going to, like, with your respective projects, how do you guys envision kind of unlocking the next stage of growth? So maybe Alpha Ray, you can go first.
So first of all, offering the same tier of features and services that or centralized exchanges provide. Basically, that centralized exchanges still have a large advantage in that they can do process fiat. Their UX is arguably better or easier to use, at least in the fact that you don't need to approve transactions, move your tokens on chain, and there's just a large barrier of entry for new users on decentralized exchanges. So making those barriers of entry smaller and making everything a little bit more user-friendly for the common people who have not had a chance to experience this yet, right? And so UX is a huge part of it. And then afterwards, it is that users really need to, education. They need to understand and to learn what the advantages of a decentralized exchange are, and that they have more safety over their tokens, and that they have complete control over their wallets. So it'll take a lot of education, it'll take some time, and that we need to make improvements basically everywhere to give users a better product, right? Because in the end, what Radium is still a product to a user, and the best product usually ends up winning in the end.
Ian, what do you think?
Yeah, I have several perspectives on this. So, I mean, in terms of Saber, I think the main thing is to get these LP tokens to be used as collateral, because they're basically the same things as using the underlying tokens as collateral, except you'll have the risk of 2 tokens instead of 1, which most people are fine having like both USDC and USDT as like collateral equivalently. So that's for Saber. Now, in terms of just the DEX space in general, I think the main thing would probably be cross margin. I think it needs to be really easy for people to take on lots of leverage and like trade very large size. So I think the liquidity also needs to be really good for that. And like they should be able to get out of their positions quickly too, and on the go, like wherever they are. I think it's really important. I also think that the just like the general UX of a lot of apps can be improved. Like I think that we're still getting a lot of random Solana errors in most apps, where you just see like this error processing instruction stuff, but that stuff doesn't exist in Binance. So we just want to make sure that like the like it's very easy for people to use things. And I don't think it's necessarily an education thing. Like I think that you could actually just make an experience that's exactly like Binance. And then that experience like would be usable by a lot of people. The fiat on-ramp thing is not an issue to a lot of people, I think, because like a lot of people I know that use Binance, right? They actually get their fiat from somewhere else and then they put onto Binance. So like they're not actually using the Binance fiat gateways. They use Binance because it has all these like other features. So yeah, I definitely agree that like we just have to like improve on a lot of things like as a like within DeFi to get to that level. But I think it can happen very fast.
Cool. Yeah, so I think we have like 5 more minutes before the session ends. Just want to kind of go around the room here and give you guys a chance to give some advice to some of the participants in the hackathon. So this whole video series is kind of in as part of our Ignition hackathon, which is running right now. There's about 10 days left. So I think Ian's actually Project Saber was a winner in the first Solana hackathon. So would love for you guys to give some advice to hackers right now. And so you can go first, Ian.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it wasn't as competitive back then. There just weren't as many people building a Solana. But I think the most important thing is to ship a product that works and is polished. Like it should be something that you're willing to like maybe it's not secure yet because like it's a hackathon, right? But it should be something that has like good UX that you're willing to actually use yourself. Like it should be a product that you're building for like a specific person that you know is going to use it. But yeah, so like with stable swap, right? We just focus on making it feel like just like Curve. We wanted to make it feel like just a faster Curve, and yeah, just make sure you ship a good product out.
Maki, you want to go next?
I think overall, Ian pretty much said it. Like, just ship something that works and refine. Just need to, with the eyes, like we don't care if like the backend is not like the most optimized or killer, etc. As long as the basic functionality are there and people can use it. Right now in Solana, there is not like a plethora of dApps that people can just go and use easily. So I think that is the most important critical things for everyone. And yeah, I think no, I don't really have like other advices aside that Solana is the land of opportunity in my opinion. Like there is like everything to be built literally. So you shouldn't have too much of a hard time, in my opinion.
Great. Alpha Ray?
It's really, build products that you see a need for. Build it quickly and make sure it does work and that it is easy to use, just as the other two have said. It's really what it comes down to, right? That people feel like they can easily use your product and that they need your product in the first place.
Awesome. Easy to use. People want it. Go build it. So sounds great, guys. Thanks for joining me tonight. Yeah, that's all we have for this evening. So thanks again.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks guys.
Thank you.
Bye.